Hey everyone, I'm Tom Baker and welcome to the 50 podcast. If you've listened before, thanks for coming back. We really appreciate it. And if this is your first time, welcome. Basically, what this podcast is co-host Randy Shrewsberry and I were both former police officers who apply sort of a critical lens to policing and the criminal justice system. And we're trying to have an ongoing conversation about criminal justice reform and the people behind that change. So the authors, activists, academics, practitioners, and subjects of the system. So people who've been impacted by the system. And it's all with a focus on the problems that we're facing and how we can change things for the better. And on this episode, I'm really excited. We have John Feal with us to talk about his work with 9/11 workers who survived Ground Zero and his work to ensure that they receive the care and support that they deserve and need. We discuss his foundation, the Feal Good Foundation, and the path that led him to that work. He tells us about his experiences as a worker at Ground Zero, the injuries he sustained, the severe injuries he sustained, the struggle with PTSD that he faced after suffering the injury, his fight for legislation for workers at Ground Zero, and his current work to pass similar legislation for individuals who have been exposed to burn pits through their military service. And the last thing we touch on quite a bit is his recent bout with COVID-19 and how that impacted him and how it's impacted others in his community. If you find this podcast useful or informative, please like, follow, subscribe, leave a comment on whatever platform you're at. And the biggest thing is to share this so as many people as possible hear it. And again, thank you very much for your time. Sit back and enjoy. Thanks again for joining us. I really appreciate it. I gave everyone sort of a brief introduction in the beginning, just a little bit about who you are and what you do. But I'd like everyone to get to know you a little bit better. Can you maybe start? One of the questions I like to ask people is, where you grew up and what your parents did. Can you maybe start there? Tell us a little bit about yourself that way.
Yeah. Well, one, thanks for having me. I grew up on Commack, Long Island. Infamous for Rosie O'Donnell and Bob Costas. And then John Feal, right?
Right.
Good company.
Yeah. Then I'm the youngest of 5 children. Never got along with my father. My parents got divorced. My mother was my father, my mother, my best friend. She passed away in 2006, but she shielded me. But from the age of 5, I was already taking judo and wrestling all the way up until my mid-20s. She taught me to be able to protect others. Throughout high school, I was I didn't really fit in because I was a jock, but took nerd classes, but hung out with the bad people. So, it's funny because a few years back, after I donated a kidney to a stranger, my alma mater, Commack South High School, honored me. And they every year, since its inception of the high school, they honor one person a year with the Commack Alumni Distinction Award. And while it was nice and humbling, I laughed and I said, "You people said I wasn't going to graduate." So, but I'm still Commack at heart. I moved about 20 minutes east of it. I live in Wisconsin, in Smithtown. So, Long Island is where I'm at. I also built a park in my hometown called the 9/11 Responders Remembered Park, which is dear to my heart. And I don't have kids. So this park, which is dedicated to those who have died since 9/11 from their illnesses, is my baby. I live 3 minutes from there, and I'm there every day.
So and you're connected to New York, like you feel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do a lot of work with the 9/11 Memorial, the museum in Manhattan. My jacket's enclosed in glass there. So, and a lot of 24-hour news cycles are there. So when I'm doing an interview with them, but we have a pandemic going on, so a lot of things are done here on Zoom, which, getting off topic, a lot of people bitch and moan about this pandemic. I get it. I couldn't see my son graduate. My daughter didn't get her prom, or couldn't go to the Sweet 16 or a wedding. We all have bad days and good days, but we have days. And there are a lot of people, about 280,000 of them, that don't get days anymore. Mm-hmm. And, to put things in perspective, this is not normal. And while people have normalizing what's going on, this is not my normal.
I think there was 3,000 people yesterday died in the United States. It's December 11th, 2020 for people that are listening. And we're right now, we're losing about 3,000 Americans a day.
Well, we're losing 9/11 every day, because that's about how many 2,977 people died on 9/11, innocent lives to senseless violence. And now, innocent lives are being taken because of ignorance. And that makes my soul hurt. And
yeah, you're not alone. I think a lot of people are horrified by the way this has been handled, and I want to talk about that a little bit, actually. So you suffered from COVID, is that correct?
Yeah, this is a kick in the ass. Am I allowed to say that on this podcast?
For sure, you say whatever you want, man.
we say much worse.
All right, good. Good. March 10th, I did a video with Michael Barish, who runs the largest BCF law firm in New York City. He's got about 20,000 clients. And I was in his office, and I said, Michael, we should do a video talking to the 9/11 community. Tell them to take this serious, because they have a compromised, including myself, immune system from 9/11. The video was about a minute and a half, and we told everybody to heed the advice of the experts, take this serious, don't go out unless you have to, because you are compromised. And a week later, I came down with COVID-19 and pneumonia, and it almost killed me. And, before I did that video on September 10th, everybody was joking around. But I took about 8 paper towels and I folded them together, and then folded them again. And then I taped them. And then I poked 2 holes on the side, and I made a mask. And I put a smiley face on there. And everybody was like, dude, what are you doing? I'm not getting sick. I don't want anybody touching me. I'm a germaphobe as it is. And I got sick. And, those first few days were immensely difficult. And then when I finally did get able to travel to go to an ER, I was diagnosed with pneumonia on top of the COVID. And I don't will that on anybody. And, for those who don't believe in this, I look at social media and I see everybody on Twitter and Facebook denying that this is real or this is a hoax or whatever the case may be. Dude, I had a problem going to science class in high school. And so did a lot of my friends. But now they're all head of, every science agency. They're experts in science, and yet I never saw them in class. So, science always trumps, no pun intended, politics. And, for the naysayers, the ignorant and the intolerant are going to get left behind. That's all.
I know. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, I was just wondering if you see similarities between the denialism of COVID and the health effects with the political denialism or indifference to the survivors, the first responders of 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, they go hand in hand, right? Ignorance is ignorance. How tall is tall? How fat is fat? It's perception. But listen, there's always, wherever there's a tragic event, there's a conspiracy. But there's also those who raise up and do good. After I got no COVID and pneumonia, as soon as I got better, I donated plasma 8 times. I started my second round of donating 8 times because I still have the antibodies. But there are those who sit at home behind a computer in their parents' basement posting useless crap. And here's the problem. I don't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. I really don't. I don't care what your religion is. Just don't be an asshole to each other. I mean, it's that simple. It really is. We've come to a point now where we just point fingers at each other and we blame each other for everybody else's, our own mistakes. There's no more conversation. And I'm a strong believer, and I won't engage in those to the far extreme right or the far extreme left. And if you want to come in the middle and talk to me, then, man, we'll talk for days, because I love a good conversation.
So I see these parallels as well. So you worked with helping to ensure that people who worked at Ground Zero are provided the treatment that they need over the long term, because we have these impacts that they don't necessarily present themselves right away, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, everybody's immune system's different, right? So some people get sick in a year, some people get sick in 5 years, some people get sick in 20 years. But the absorption due to nose, mouth, and skin from the toxic aftermath of that Tuesday morning, if I stood in front of a jury, turned to them and said, everybody's immune system's different, I'd be the world's best attorney. And same thing with COVID. Some people get it worse than others. I dedicated 16 years of my life getting that bill passed 3 times for 9/11 responders and volunteers and people in Lower Manhattan and those at the Pentagon and Shanksville. But we also passed 10 other bills in New Jersey, in Albany, in DC, and in Michigan. I'm 13 for 13, and now we're working on another bill with Jon Stewart for the burn pits, for the veterans and the soldiers coming home who are literally burning from the inside out from the toxic aftermath of the burn pits. And they have the same respiratory illnesses and the same cancers as 9/11 responders. Those stories are scary compatible.
What do you think the difference is? So if someone was at ground zero or someone was in Iraq or Afghanistan and they were killed, and immediately there's this, they part of a collapsing building, or they're shot by somebody, they seem to be treated very differently than people who get sick and it's like over an extended period of time. What do you think that's rooted in? Why do you think people?
Money. It's all about money, right? So, I mean, hey, Tom, I thank you for your service. You're the best. But if you get sick, or if you get shot, or if you get burnt in a house fire, you're a firefighter or a police officer and you get shot, or you crash your cruiser, or if you're in the military and you get your leg blown off by IED, you become expendable. But if somebody dies in combat, or if somebody died on 9/11, that one-time payout is quick. But once you become a burden on the financial system of all these institutions, you're no longer the hero that they said you were. We're quick to say thank you for your service. I don't think anybody says it maliciously or with or they want to be mean about it. But we're trained to say thank you. Thank you for your service. It should be thank you for your sacrifice. My way of saying thank you to everybody is trying to get legislation passed that will help the masses. Because first responders and the military, it's such a small percentage of the population. And don't get me, we can go into a million things. There's bad apples in the military, there's bad apples in law enforcement, but the majority of them are good people and they're hardworking people, men and women, uniform and non-uniform, and they bust their asses to keep this country safe. And, I feel safe.
And so what I want to talk a little bit, take it back. I meant to ask you this earlier on, prior to introducing you, and then we started talking about COVID, but do you mind telling us how you became involved initially? Like so you grew up in that area. What took you to...
So, after high school, I lost my scholarship to wrestle because I broke my elbow. My hand touched my shoulder backwards. Ouch. And I lied on my physical and I joined the military. I was 17. I had to get my parents' signature. Military was easy. All the physical stuff at that time, I took 5th place out of 32,000 soldiers in a mile-long obstacle. So I was always in great shape. And then out of the military experience, I was going to be a police officer. And then I turned around and said, you know what? I keep getting tickets. I don't want to be something I don't like. So I did construction, which turned into doing demolition. And I traveled the whole country, knocking things down, picking things up, blowing them up, having fun. And I had a good career. And then 9/11 happened and I got hurt. And
when you went down there...
Yeah.
So when
I went down there because I was told to go down there.
Right.
I was paid to go down there. I wasn't volunteering.
Right.
I was there for 5 days and got $3,200 in my paycheck, which they gave me in a hospital bed, which I couldn't cash that check until I got out of the hospital 11 weeks later. But on September 17th, roughly 8,000 pounds of steel crushed my left foot. And then I spent 11 weeks in the hospital with gangrene, and I became septic. That injury doesn't define me, but at the time it was devastating. It humbled me. Before I got hurt, I thought I was like Elvis, Fonzie, Bo Jackson. I thought I was that cool. I thought I was the world's best weekend athlete. And I realized, like, wow, I'm not invincible. Shit does hurt when it lands on you. I do cry. And, we lay in bed for like 3 days. You get the flu. You're like, oh my God, what did I miss? My friends were going out yesterday. I laid on my back for 11 weeks. I was counting ceiling tile. It was a game changer. I got out of the hospital. I went from 185 pounds to 120 pounds. Oh, wow. And I knew there was something physically wrong with me. Obviously, I lost half a foot. But mentally, there was something wrong with me. And I was already diagnosed by 2 doctors with post-traumatic in the hospital. And they had me so looped up and medicated. And I haven't taken a pill since 2005 for it. But I told my mother, I go, Ma, I got to go get help. I need to talk to somebody that's not going to kiss my ass. And I did EMDR for 2.5 years. And if I didn't do that, I don't know where I'd be today.
Can you tell us what that is?
EMDR is it's therapy. It's the ability to use sound or touch or smell or listening and a sound. I chose sound, but that woman saved my life.
And what does it entail? Like what?
She talks to you. They talk to you. They ask you questions in a session while there's music in the background, whether it's running water or birds chirping or stuff like. Oh, there was no talking at all. You just listen to the noises, and then you talk after or before. But it was an experience that saved my life. And I don't mean to save my life like I was going to kill myself, but it saved my life and put me on the right path. But I take suicide and post-traumatic serious. And while in the 9/11 community, the sexy illness is cancer because so many people have cancer, the most common one is post-traumatic because so many people were subject. Nobody wakes up in the morning to see that kind of destruction and devastation. I don't care how trained you are. The human psyche is just not prepared to see that. I talk to people every day that call me and you don't know what I'm going through. I got post-traumatic. Dude, it's something to be embarrassed about. It's a badge of honor. It means you've been through something and you survived and you came out the other side. No, you're not the same person as who you were when you went in, but you're better for it. And I keep telling myself that every day. I'm so busy 18, 19 hours a day, running my foundation, running the park board, the Feal Good board, sitting on other boards, helping people, doing interviews. So I don't have time to feel sorry for myself and go boo-hoo-hoo. 2020 was rough for everybody. 2020 was rough for me. I had shoulder surgery, then COVID and pneumonia, then two kidney emergency stone surgeries, which hurt more than anything, right? So, oh my God. And I only got one kidney because I donated one like an idiot.
Go ahead, Randy.
I was gonna ask if you have seen since 9/11, or maybe even a year or two after, as you really got involved, have you seen the attitudes of first responders normalizing PTSD? As just like you said, cancer's the sexy one. We know, that law enforcement just in general, and I assume it applies to most emergency care workers or first responders, are walking around with PTSD. But, in policing especially, suicide is a pandemic in of itself. Or an epidemic, I'm sorry. But have you seen kind of the hearts and minds changing over the years about how police officers are looking at PTSD and depression, those sorts of things? Do you think that this has helped?
We're going on 20 years. So there's probably about no more than 10% of the workforce from 9/11 that is still actively working. That's NYPD, that's FDNY, that's other entities that were down at ground zero. Most people are retired or got sick or died. So the thing is, up until September 15th, 9/11 ground zero was in the military, we call it a clusterfuck. It was controlled chaos. Everybody was trying to do the right thing. But after the 15th, you got kicked out if you didn't have an area of expertise. And then it became a fenced in, secured location, and you can only get in and out with a badge. Those who were left there to work were all trained at something. Nobody made $8 an hour. Everybody was well paid, and these were macho, burly men and women. All right, these are guys with mustaches the size of poodles on their lip. These were guys with tattoos on their neck. These were, hardcore civil servants. And to see, people always ask me, what do I remember most? I can block out the bad stuff that I saw there for 5.5 days, but I'm going to remember grown men hugging each other, strangers, and crying on each other. And the long-term toll of that was guys in denial for so long until they had their episode and their breakdown, and then they finally gave in. Now so many can talk about it, but there are still those who deny it. But like even my childhood best friends who I neglected for so long because I was embarrassed after I got hurt, my childhood best friends are now best friends with my 9/11 best friends. And when we're together, or we're on the phone, or we're playing golf, or we don't say goodbye. We say I love you. And if anybody wants to be in my circle of that close-knit group of friends, you got to say I love you when we say goodbye, because I'm seeing so many people get sick and so many people die. I don't want to say goodbye. And that's just my mindset. But now with the pandemic, with the doctors and the nurses and the EMS and the FDA and all the firefighters across the country are going through, and the police officers, this is going to take a toll on them. And many of them already have had their episodes, and many of them are already diagnosed with post-traumatic depression, anxiety. But the long-term effect is going to be less people are going to want to become doctors, nurses, cops, firefighters, EMS, because we did not handle this the right way. And, we keep saying frontline workers. My head explodes every time I hear that. I want to punch somebody when they're the last line of defense. The American people were the front line, and we failed. We put an extra burden on the last line of defense, which were the doctors and nurses and the EMS. So I don't know why we keep calling them frontline workers. They're the last line of defense. The American people are the front line. And we have caused their agony and their pain and their suffering, along with the people who got COVID, because people who think the earth is flat didn't want to wear a mask, and they got stupid and they got selfish, and shame on them.
Absolutely. Just to touch on what you guys talk about, and what Randy's initial question about the change in the way that are like these typically men, like highly masculine professions like police, fire, military, that I think there's been a definite change in people's willingness to talk about the issues like PTS, and you just said about what John said about you guys saying you love each other. I know, I noticed in the beginning of my career, there was this real stigma, much more of a stigma. There still is a stigma against PTS or whatever, but I noticed towards the end, people were a little bit more willing to acknowledge.
Yeah, well, imagine that cop that's got 19 years on the job, and he wants to get his pension, and he's suffering so bad with his mental illness. He's not going to say anything, right? Because he wants that pension. He doesn't want to get rubber stamped. He doesn't want to lose his gun. Yeah, so I understand a lot of these guys went through this after 9/11, and I saw it. A lot of them I had to advocate for and fight for them. And again, you're taking alpha men, alpha males, and alpha females, and literally they've deteriorated to fetal positions. They're a bowl of jelly now, and it's all right to admit. Listen, dude, underneath this jacket, I'm covered in ink. I'm ripped in muscles. I bench 325 pounds. I'm 170 pounds. And I cry like a schoolgirl. It's all right. It doesn't make me less of a man.
Yeah, hopefully that change is taking place. I know it's, I know myself, like I had PTS and was when I was a police officer, and I certainly didn't feel comfortable bringing it up, and ended up just sort of leaving the profession. But go ahead.
It's like being in an NFL locker room and saying you're gay. It's taboo, right? So if you're in the police locker room and you say you have post-traumatic, you're the crazy guy. There is nothing to be embarrassed about this. 22 soldiers are coming home every day. On average, 22 soldiers, veterans, kill themselves. This is we keep sweeping mental illness under the rug when it really needs to be addressed nationally. Where are you guys located?
I'm in Los Angeles. And I'm in Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. And
Missouri.
Near
St. Louis.
So we basically have 3 different time zones right now. They always say, politics separate us, religion separates us. What separates us really, literally, is geography. Yep. The way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we talk, the way we think, the way we go to work, everything is done differently in New York than it is Missouri, right? So, if you're a conservative in Missouri and somebody in New York calls themselves a conservative, you guys laugh at that because that New York conservative isn't really a conservative, right? But everything we do is we're literally 50 states that make up one big island, but everything we do. So it's different and frowned upon in different areas of the country, this mental illness. He don't have no mental illness. He's making that shit up. No, dude. Post-traumatic is serious. Post-traumatic is not just a mental illness. It's physical and mental stress on the body. Mm-hmm. And it breaks down your immune system. So if you're dealing with another illness, or if you're relatively healthy, you will get sick because it doesn't allow your immune system to fight at 100%. And you're going to see that with all of these doctors and all of these nurses and EMS when they get to COVID, and then they succumb to it, just like 9/11 responders.
I know we're getting killed with suicides here in central Missouri. I live in a rural part of Missouri, and when you drive along the freeway, there are billboards, and it's pictures of middle-aged white guys saying, "Seek help. Do you love him? Make sure he's getting the help he needs. Suicide prevention." All up, and addiction too, opioids, and it's like white guys my age and a little older that are being hammered with it. I'm sorry, Randy, I kind of stepped on you there.
No, that's okay. And I really just wanted to echo what John said, is because I think that PTSD, mental health really kind of as a whole can tend to be looked at just very singularly, right? That is just one illness without the recognition of the entire ripple effect that it has on the entire body. I mean, it takes a absolute physical toll. So I think, I know that there's been a great deal of advocacy that you guys have done relative, to getting, care, especially with breathing issues or with cancer. How has your foundation, the legislation that you've worked on, is mental health included and these kinds of this advocacy for the first responders?
Yeah. So the James Droga Health and Compensation Act, which is the bill that got passed in 2010, then 2015, and then last year in 2019, and then they added Ray Pfeiffer and Lou Alvarez's name to it. On the healthcare side of the bill, you get free treatment for the rest of your life if you have a mental illness post-traumatic. But it's not compensatable. It's the only illness covered under the whole bill that's not compensatable. You can't get compensated for your illness. And I understand that. Anybody who was watching 9/11 on TV can say they got post-traumatic and then file a claim. So part of me agrees with me. Part of me disagrees with it. But, these were one of the things that were negotiated several hundred times over the last 10, 15 years so that we were able to get a bill passed that helps the masses. There are times, because of who I am and my responsibility, I still suffer from post-traumatic. There are days that I don't want to do anything, but I force myself to do it. But my safe zone is in the shower. I will take a 20, 30, 40-minute shower and just stand there in the water until I'm ready to come out and face the world. Now, I have the luxury of going to bed at 12 o'clock and getting up at 4:35 because I don't need that much sleep. So my shower is usually late at night or early in the morning, and it doesn't interfere with my daily schedule. But everybody has a safe zone. I'm counting. When I was in the hospital for 11 weeks, dude, I couldn't tell you 4 plus 4 before 9/11. Now, I count everything. Now it turned into not only do I count everything, every decision I make, every project that I take on, I use numbers, I use math, and I weigh the pros and cons, and math now dictates my life. So the mind's a funny thing. And while we have doctors and scientists who are experts on different parts of the body and organs and heart and the knee surgeries now or hip surgery, we still haven't figured this out, the brain. We haven't even scraped the surface of that bad boy. And I hope they take my brain and go, what the is going on in this guy's head? But I used to have such a, if we were all in the same room, and this was 2004 or 5, I would count the corners or the windows in the room and then blurt it out while we were having a conversation. You'd look at me like I'm an idiot. Now I can control it, but I count everything.
We had a guy, this sort of just reminds me of how it could be so mismanaged and discounted. We had a guy he was a police officer. He was, he'd been in a shooting and he was having a lot of mental health issues following that, started drinking, had brought it to the attention, hey, I need some help. I'm having alcohol problems. And around that time, he got a DUI while that was happening. And the department fired him for the DUI and disconnected. He lost his health care, lost his position or whatever, and ended up killing himself. Got to put on I think he put on his uniform before he did it too. And it was just the failure of the organization to recognize it as a legitimate problem. The signal that sent to other police officers, it was just a really, really super toxic. Because like what Randy was talking about, it's not just what it does to your mind and the rest of your body, but the community that you're embedded in, the way that you interact with people, the way you interact with your coworkers, with citizens as a police officer. It's vital that we make sure that we're taking care of these police officers' brains because they have a lot of power over people's lives. We need to make sure that they're healthy.
Amen.
Yeah, in fact, to your point about the human mind, there's a quote that says, the human brain is the most complex structure in the universe, according to the human brain. And it's self-defines. And I've said, for years, like especially, as a cop and understanding like how many people we dealt with who were suffering some sort of mental illness or other police officers. There were 2 people that I went to the academy with, both killed themselves. One of them, everybody was kind of like, we saw this, right? We saw him over the years kind of having some struggles. And the other one, it was just out of the blue, right? He was internalizing all of his, all of the torment that, that he was going through. But, I've always said, like, the human knee, right? I mean, it was a couple of dozen moving parts and it breaks down all the time, right? We have billions of neurons and pathways and things, just like you said, that we don't even really have a full understanding for. And then to assume that just shit's not going to go wrong is foolish. So I really appreciate really your vulnerability, John, talking about, like counting or coping mechanisms, long showers, those kinds of things, because I think that this is the part of the discussion that isn't talked about. I think we have done a little bit better about talking about, it's okay for men to cry, even though I still think we have a long ways to go. But it's really these kind of granular details of like, how can this really fuck up your head? What does it mean to be able, because you talk about the weeks that you were in the hospital. Well, I mean, that wasn't your recovery period, right? That was a triage period. I mean, how many years, right? Did it go on? I hope to believe, I mean, as tragic as 9/11 was, is that, we as a nation can come out of many of these things, better than we were before. How though, when you're being fought every step of the way, right? I mean, to me, like, so I've seen you on television before, Jon Stewart talking about it. And, to me, it's just like, these are the hypocrites who are saying, we love our soldiers, we love our first responders, and then fuck them when they have a long-term illness. I mean, how do you push through that because to me, it just kind of feels like their overwhelming cynicism or the neglect it can just be so discouraging to fight on.
Yeah, I call them paper patriots.
Yeah, that's a good term.
Those elected officials, whether it's at your state capitol or in DC, usually on Veterans Day or 9/11, they take to their Twitter page or their website and they say something patriotic and they wave their flag. And, waving a flag doesn't make you a patriot. I could, it just doesn't. Putting one out in front of your lawn, it doesn't. Getting involved in your community, working with those less fortunate, helping the handicapped, that makes you a patriot and a good human being. But I have the mindset when I go to DC or anywhere that they work for us. I mean, we pay their salary. We're taxpayers. At least I am. And the chairs that they sit in, I own that. The desks that they sit behind, I own that. And they have to take a meeting with us. They have to listen to us. And there are people around this country that probably have really good, important causes and they give up because they don't have the time, the energy, or the mindset to take the fight to DC. People are going to say we won. I'll never call it a victory. Just because so many people got sick, so many people died, and it took forever. But, we went to Michigan back in 2016. And the Michigan firefighters asked us if we would come and help them get a bill passed. It was a cancer presumption bill. And I was like, yeah, dude, I'm on my way. He goes, well, how much do you want? I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, we were going to pay you for your services. I go, give me a bottle of water. We'll call it even. And they're like, well, let us pay for your flight and hotel. I said, dude, I'm getting off a plane, getting you a bill pass and going home. And, I took a couple of firefighters with me. And I said, it's got to be my way. Let us do it our way. And they're like, whatever you want. I said, just get all your firefighters with their kids and meet me at the state capitol. And they did. And I had everybody hold hands, enough people to wrap around the state capitol in Michigan. I said, we'll be back in about an hour. And me and the 3 firefighters from New York went inside. I went in there with Governor Snyder at the time and came out there with an agreement, told the firefighters they'd have a bill passed the next day. They all said bullshit. And they got a bill passed. So, my way is not for everybody. But when human life is at stake and you have a responsibility to help your constituents and you don't, Well, then it's on. Let's get it on, because I don't care if you're the Pope, my mother, God rest her soul, or the President of the United States. If you're not going to do your job, I'm going to help you leave. It's that simple. Man, why don't this new normal that we treat each other, this, you guys are old enough to remember, because you're probably around my age, 9/12, if we could have bottled that day now and opened it in case of emergency right now, because on 9/12, it didn't matter your skin color, your religion, your gender, your income. We were all American. We were all human beings. And, after the initial shock of, wow, we're the United States, we got attacked, we got knocked the fuck out. We got up and we brushed ourselves off and we moved forward. But when we got up, we were in awe. And then we got angry. But I also believe charity, the spirit of the human being and the American people, overcame that anger. And the amount of love that we produced as a nation towards each other. And we let it go because of what? Because of some politicians and elected officials who, things should happen in this country and trickle their way down to D.C. Things shouldn't happen in D.C. and trickle their way across America. And those 535 members of Congress and the Senate don't give a shit about us. Trust me. Oh, he's a Republican. Oh, he's a Democrat. Here's the thing. There's only one party in D.C. with two different ideas. I've been to 3 State of the Unions. The very senators that were attacking each other on Fox or CNN or MSNBC earlier in the day were at those dinners and at the pre-dinner party and at the after party of the State of the Unions doing shots together and high-fiving. It's a fucking act. It's all theatrics, and politics and religion divide us.
Yeah.
While geography is the real reason why we're divided, we use politics and religion to divide the masses. And listen, guys, I believe in God. I'm born and raised Roman Catholic. God Almighty. But my God is more spiritual than a book. And politics-wise, I'm not married to either party. I have no affiliation other than don't be an asshole to each other. So when you can remove yourself from a political affiliation and a religion, but believe in the process and believe in a God or a superior being, then you're at peace with yourself. And I'm never going to compromise my morals or principles or anything for a Republican or a Democrat who's just trying to hold power. There's no more legislative process. It's all about who tweets the fastest, who's the wittiest. Twitter keeps suspending me because I actually keep going after members of Congress and the Senate. I get all of these people on Twitter and they say, oh, so-and-so sucks. Or so-and-so. Put the ad in front of it. If you don't put the ad in front of it, you're a coward. So when I put the ad in front of it and call Congressman so-and-so, hey, Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, use a breath mint when you're tweeting. Gets me suspended. I don't give a shit.
Well, what the great George Carlin said, it's a big fucking club, and you ain't in it, right? Yeah, for sure.
It's so insulting, though. It's so repulsive and disgusting of how we become and how we treat each other. And again, it's not my norm. It's not the way I was. Everybody, 9/11, John Feal. I was like this before 9/11. I lived my life by the way my mother raised me, and I've never changed. 9/11 just gave me a platform to talk about shit.
I tend to agree with you. You're political. It sounds like we have the same political philosophy. Has there been anyone? And I mentioned this in the intro that you recently won an award through the Tillman Foundation, recognized you for your work. And one of the things I wanted to ask you when we were on the Zoom there, I didn't get a chance, was, is there anyone that you've encountered that sort of breaks the mold? Is there anyone that in the political arena that maybe surprised you, that you were like, wow, this person is going above and beyond and really does care and is doing this for the right reasons? Or is it mostly political calculation?
Political calculation, 99% of the time. Listen, I have a great relationship with Senator Gillibrand. She cares about the military. She cares about first responders. but she's a career politician. I've met elected officials along the way over the last 15 years. When I first started going to D.C., there was actually Blue Dog Democrats and Log Cabin Republicans. And they actually sat down and they discussed things and ironed them out and compromised. Compromised. What an ugly word, right? But they all lie. It's just who lies the most. Some lie, holy shit, every word out of their mouth. I can give you a list of people. But if you just call bullshit on them, I'll have more respect for you. Yeah, I call right away. Just call it out on them. My first meeting with Mitch McConnell went really bad. Really, really bad. My second meeting with Mitch McConnell, not so good, not so bad. The first one, I got escorted to his office with 4 guys with the AR-15s, like I was a fucking terrorist. On my last meeting with Mitch McConnell, we shook hands. He got watery in the eyes when I gave him Lou Alvarez's shield, and I saw a different side of him. And
he has tear ducts for real?
Yeah, I was shocked. But after 1,800 plus meetings and 300 plus trips, I know how these people operate. And if I ever write the book, I'm gonna take I'm gonna take a lot of shots at a handful of them that they know I know their secrets.
Well, I hope you do write the book. If I may ask real quickly, because I saw something on your website, a little video clip that said you didn't know how to spell foundation before you created a foundation, and there's parallels with our organization. I was a cop and then worked as an investigator in the private sector. I've never been a politician. I've never been a lobbyist. I've never, I've volunteered sometimes and, for a couple of different causes, but that was about it. How'd you move from this, construction worker, tearing down buildings to now tearing down the system and helping and build it back up?
I'm going to get this one out of the way. I can't even take credit for naming the Feal Good Foundation. So when I was filling out the paperwork, getting my EIN number, opening a bank account, and filling out a business license, I went to the office and there was this, she had to be semi-retired, part-time worker, but she was probably in her mid to late 70s, maybe even 80, a beautiful little black woman. And she's like, baby, you didn't fill this out all the way. And I said, yeah, I did the best I could. She goes, no, you got to fill this out today. And I go, well, I haven't really thought of a name for my foundation yet, because everybody who has a 9/11 foundation has 9/11 in it. And when people think of the worst, they think of 9/11, they think of the worst. I don't want to put 9/11. She goes, baby, what's your last name? I go, John Feal. She goes, call it the Feal Good Foundation. And I said, well, can I at least spell it F-E-A? She goes, you can do whatever you want. And I coined it the Feal Good Foundation. And I never got to thank her, go back there. And, she's not there anymore. But she really took credit for that. But, when I was going to therapy individually, I started going to support groups. Now I was going to physical therapy to learn how to walk again. But I was also going to mental health therapy individually and in support groups. And then, I hate to cliche it, there's always somebody worse off than you. Right. But I was sitting there with 10, 15 guys who were all sick. Cops, firefighters, construction workers, just a mixed match, a diverse group of individuals. And then I started going to more support groups and different. And I was signing up for everything because I wanted to hear everybody's stories. And at that time, I was trying to get my basic benefits, Social Security and Workman's Comp. And I didn't have the Feal Good Foundation to help me. So I had to fight for myself to get benefits, which took 3 years on one, 4 years on the other. And then I was listening to their stories, and then these guys all had severe respiratory illnesses, cancers, whatever the case may be. And I was like, dude, you could do this, you could do that, you should do this. And they're like, wow, dude, you're so smart. I go, no, really, I'm not. I've been through it, right? And then say somebody had a hearing, I would take like 8 guys and we show up to the hearing, and we just cross our arms, go like this, and wait for the lawyers and judges to see us. and these people would win their cases. And it was kind of Neanderthalish. Is that a word?
Yeah.
And I'm not going to apologize for helping people. The fact that they thought you were capable of violence and never used violence, I mean, I'm a pacifist. And it was good enough to do that. And then everybody, saw the foundation. And that's where you saw that clip where it says, I couldn't even spell foundation. I'm self-deprecating for a reason, because my humor masks my pain. And when I started the foundation, I was just going to be a Band-Aid on a machine gun wound, put food on people's tables, pay their utilities. But one thing led to another, and then we started getting more political. So we were wearing more than one hat at the foundation. And then I created the 9/11 Responders Remembered Park here on Long Island, dedicated to those who died since 9/11. So I have a couple of different boards. So then, since 2005, we donated about $8 to $9 million. We helped pass 13 pieces of legislation. And while I get a lot of accolades for that, the most important thing to me was that park, because that's something tangible that I get to leave behind. And maybe one day I'll be on that wall if I die from a 9/11 illness. But it's 1 acre of land with a 60-foot granite wall, piece of steel, a waterfall. And, I don't have kids. That's my baby, that park. So, donating a kidney to a complete stranger to raise awareness for so many 9/11 responders that needed kidneys. And now I've helped about 15 to 16 9/11 responders get kidneys by telling their stories on the internet or on TV, or writing places that are able to help facilitate things like that. So again, I'm going to continue to give back to myself. And you've probably heard this from a drunk uncle at a family reunion, but they always say, you only live once. Yeah, you only live once. Live it up. It's not true. You only die once. You live every day. And that's how I choose to live my life. I wear blinders. I'm not going to lie to you. And I don't know if that's healthy, but I stay so focused on what's ahead of me and what I got to do that I don't get caught up in other people's crap and their dramas. And I'm going to live my life every day until I can't live anymore, because no one gets out of this alive, right? So I'm not for everybody. I'm a little different. I get it. But I care. And that's all that matters.
I think I would imagine that a lot of the initial traction you got in DC had a lot to do with the fact that you're not the typical foundation person in DC who, went to this school and then they.
Yeah, well, we got the shit beat out of us in the beginning in DC. It was, then they try to demonize you. That's the game plan in DC. Demonize the person that needs help. It's like a rape victim coming forward, and then she becomes so I was a loose cannon. I was a pistol. I was this, I was that. I was making shit up. And then when people started joining me, I said, you gotta stay focused. You can't get distracted by their noise. If they have a reason why they don't support it, give them the reason why they should, but stay focused. And then I created a system where once I put my foot on their neck, we kept pressure on it. So boots on the ground in the hallways, having meetings, but having the American people at the same time emailing, faxing, calling their office. Listen, I have a great relationship with Nancy Pelosi, but she played games in 2010. And then I had a 7-minute meeting and I put my feet up on her desk and she said, young man, take your feet off my desk. I said, no, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to leave here. I'm going to have your phones blown up. You're not going to get any work done. For 3 days, we blew up her phones and her emails. And then she called Carolyn Maloney in New York. And she said, tell Feal he won. We'll put the bill in the committee for a vote. So, while I worked mostly with Democrats and it was Republicans that were holding up the bill 3 times, I'm not afraid to go after anybody. If you have that power to help, then do it. And not the, calculating your politics and if somebody's going to primary you or it's going to kill you in the next election. Just do what's morally right. So many people in DC right now are so morally bankrupt. they're broken, and they're never going to be able to get fixed. And you see the guy from Virginia, Denver, Wiggleman, he's retiring, Republican. And he came out this morning, he was on CNN, and he went after his own party. Charlie Dent, when he left 2 years ago, he goes after his own party. It seems that when they're out of office, guys, I was an asshole for 8 years or 4 years. Don't hold it against me. I'm back to being normal. I'm a good guy. Trust me, I love you all. Let's go play around the golf. No, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, the Lincoln Project, right? They ushered in this fucking disaster, and then now are like, oh well, we can't have this, right? Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, that's because they want to. And I listen. I can go after them for a million things, but the true core of the Republican Party wants to stay intact and get rid of that craziness around them. And they want to go back to being that, the Republican Party banks on the military. They bank on law enforcement. They bank on the American people, yet they're welded to corporations and the rich. And listen, we can argue all you want. Trickle down economics doesn't work. It doesn't work. I'll sit here for hours explaining that one, why it doesn't work. And again, I'm not welded to either party, but I will point out what's wrong with both of them in a heartbeat, and that individual.
Have you ever thought about throwing your hat into the ring and running for office?
I get asked all the time by both parties. I got asked, but more so lately by Democrats. But here's the thing: I will get caught. I don't care how. I never thought I'd get hurt and lose half a foot. Then I realized I wasn't invincible. Now I realize that I'm a free spirit and I can go and do as I want and go after them. If I ever did run and get in, I don't think I could do what I do without getting either assassinated or censored, right? And I think you become part of that system. The only way to truly do this right is to break it all down and start all over. And I don't say that lightly, because that's dramatic and drastic. But someone's got to grow a set of Abe Lincolns and start introducing common sense legislation where there's term limits, where if you get in trouble as an elected official, you don't get that pension. Same thing as that cop or that firefighter, right? I mean, you do one term, you get a pension for life. Who the fuck are you? What is that? They're calling everything that we get as an entitlement. But it's
money.
But it's them that are entitled.
Yeah, they're definitely the entitled ones for sure.
Right? So, I mean, it's projection. So every time they say we're doing something, it's really them doing it. And it's more people got to stop and listen before they open that hole under their nose.
Is there any, this is another question I wanted to ask and I never got a chance last time, was, so you've heard these stories of all these different people that were affected by 9/11, working down at 9/11, and there's got to be tons of. Is there any particular one that you find yourself, because I know Randy and I we've talked about it. We have these particular incidents or people we met that for whatever reason they sort of stick in our head. Is there any particular one that you sort of, that is an essential focus to you, like when things get tough or when you're by yourself, that just pops into your head, or you think about this person and find it inspirational?
No, there are three people that I became close with after 9/11, and all three died. John McNamara, firefighter, Ray Pfeiffer, who passed away in 2015, who Jon Stewart gave his eulogy, and then Lou Alvarez, who testified last year in front of Congress. He passed away 18 days later. Those guys never complained. They're always about everybody else. And that's the closest I can compare myself to them. So why I've never been diagnosed with cancer yet. And when I say yet, everybody in the 9/11 community looks over their shoulder going, when am I getting cancer. I hope if I do, I can live my life like they did, because I am 1/8 of a man that they were. And, those guys, they truly are. They're the reason why I fight it. They're the reason why I existed. So, when people come to me for help, pain is pain, suffering is suffering. I don't say, well, because your illness is worse, I'm going to help you first. I help everybody with the same amount of energy and passion, and that's individually. But when it's coming to the big whole, that I enlist others. And, nobody talks about this, but, I'll take last year, 2019, we made 24 trips to DC to get that bill passed. Every one of my guys, and my group of core guys was about 12. When I expanded it, it was about 20. But when I wanted to go big, it was about 40. And they were all on standby. They knew their significance. And every one of them, not one or two, but every one of them all got their VCF awards. Most of them were millionaires. And I asked them to come back with me. And not one said no. They all said, you got it. What do you want? And that, to me, was the most humbling thing ever. Because, everybody, Jon Stewart and then John Feal. But it was those guys that they never get to know their names that had cancer or COPD and post-traumatic and all of these illnesses that they had to get in a car, drive down 95, stop halfway there, take medicine, had their wives call me and say, don't let my husband die or I'll kill you. They're the ones who deserve all the credit because they already got compensated. They could have did anything the rest of their lives, but they went back and they fought for tens of thousands of people across the country. That is fucking amazing. Amazing. And nobody talks about that.
So we've already had you here for over an hour. The time kind of flew by. Unless Randy has anything else.
You didn't ask me the hard questions yet.
No, we got to. Yeah, we're holding off. We'll hold off on the hard questions till next time we have you by.
Well, I just have one final question, and I'll throw you a softball again. But what's up next for the foundation? What are you guys working on? How can folks get involved and help promote the hard work that you and your team are doing?
Yeah, so listen, every day we're still helping people from 9/11. We're helping them getting in the World Trade Center Health Program. Once they get into the program, they take a physical. If anything comes back that's covered under the bill, their illness gets certified and they can file a claim to get compensated. That's all the time. But now we're working on the burn pit legislation. So Jon Stewart and I and Senator Gillibrand, we introduced a bill in September. It's going to die at the end of the year. We knew that, but we wanted the traction going into next year because sometime in March, April, or May, we are going to get into those buildings. And then we're going to unleash. And we're going to get a bill passed. The BSOs and all of these military organizations, they've been at it for 10, 15 years on this burn pit issue. And then when they came to us and asked us, will you get involved? I asked John, and John said, yeah. And when we sat down with them and I asked them, well, how many meetings do you guys do a day when you go down there? How many times you go down there a month? And they're like, well, we had like 2 meetings. We go down there every 6 months. I said, what? I said, guys, go get a treadmill because I go 2 or 3 or 4 times a month. And we have 20, 30, 40 meetings a day. And they're like, what? And I go, yeah, that's how it gets done. So we're going to implement the blueprint that's been successful for 15 years and John's celebrity status. And we're going to punch Congress in the mouth. And we're going to get legislation passed because these men and women, these are everyday average people that join the military, and they're doing something remarkable by keeping us safe from harm's way, and they're coming home sick. I mean, who digs a hole next to the base, puts everything in there, food, clothes, body parts from amputees, ammunition, computers, and then use jet fuel to light it on fire? You could not start a fire in the United States with jet fuel. It's illegal. It's against the law. But these men and women, like 9/11 responders, the absorption through the nose, mouth, and skin, worked there, ate there, slept there, cried there, went to the bathroom there, name what else they did there, and they were exposed to those toxins. And God, we're the greatest nation in the world, but yet we keep failing the same mistakes over and over. Listen, my mother told me once, don't put your finger in the outlet. I did it once. That shit hurt. And never do it again. You just don't do stupid things.
Well, that's America, though. We seem to repeat the same mistakes over and over again. It's remarkable. What about so what and this ties into what my question was is, so if I'm listening to this and I live in Ohio, I'm listening to this,
Yeah,
and I think, you know what, if some person gets forced to stand by a burn pit and be exposed to jet fuel and computer parts being melted, and I know I've got aches and pains from my military service where my body got abused. I think most people think, well, those people should be taken care of.
Yeah, well,
what can they do? What can the average person do to help you?
So we created a website that's still under construction, but they can go to it. It's warfighters2021.com. And little by little each day they're adding to it. So we formed a coalition of the Wounded Warriors, the Feal Good Foundation, Burn Pit 360s, the VFWs, and we're using that to disseminate information. And then moving into the new year, while we put boots on the ground, we're going to have the American people call, email, fax, and make a lot of noise to their members of Congress and the Senate. And then put John on every 24-hour news cycle and tell them, Congress, Senate, here we are, But, we know our opposition. The opposition is going to be the VA or the DOD and, certain members of Congress and the Senate who get a boatload of money for protecting them, right? So, we're not paid lobbyists. We do this for free. No one pays me to go and get legislation passed. I have no skin in the game other than to do the right thing. But for each member in Congress and the Senate, there's 22 and a half lobbyists that are up their ass, So we know we have an uphill fight, and it's going to take more than Jon Stewart, John Feal, and some VSOs to get this done. It's going to take the American people and guys like you telling our stories so your listeners get involved.
So basically, we need to get the American people to put their collective feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk by going to your website and making phone calls and hammering them on Twitter to get this done because it's so obvious.
Yeah, hey, listen, it's not just Nancy Pelosi. It's going to be Mitch McConnell or Chuck Schumer or whatever other 50 senators there is. Last year when we got the bill passed, Nancy Pelosi was coming out of the chamber and she walked by me and she hugged me, and there's a million cameras. And everybody's flashing, and she wears the best perfume ever. Ever. I don't know what it is. I didn't ask her. I didn't want to get that personal. But my God, the woman smells amazing. 2, in front of everybody, in front of cameras, you could probably look it up somewhere. She said to me in front of everybody, she goes, "You're the toughest son of a bitch ever in 40 years on the Hill." And whether she meant it or not, she said it in front of everybody. And that meant a lot. I apologized to her for putting my feet on the desk and being hard on her in 2010. And she's probably the only elected official I apologize, because I never apologized to others who failed at their job. Man, dude, if you're a cop, if you're fucked up once, you get a little reprimand, you get, but if you keep doing it, you get fired. You get fired. And the fact that these members keep getting reelected, man, America, do your home. We are the most informed country, and yet we're the most ignorant. It just doesn't mix with me.
Amen to that, brother. You're preaching to the choir on that. I just want to thank you very much for.
Are you really from Missouri?
No, I'm not from Missouri. I just moved. We moved out here about 5 years ago now.
Where are you originally from?
A little bit everywhere. A little bit everywhere. I was born in New Jersey, actually. Tom's River. My dad was the Fort Dick.
1989 Little League World Series champs.
Oh, really? Yeah, yeah. I remember that actually. Yeah, because it was.
That's just useless knowledge.
I don't remember the year, but I remember around that
89.
time watching
Todd Frazier was on that team.
Okay, I didn't know that. Yeah, so I guess I'm a Jersey boy, but I certainly don't sound like it. I only lived there for a little while, and I've lived in like 10, 15 different states, I think. So
wow,
quite a bit. But Randy, you got anything else or?
No, I just want to echo what Tom said. Is John, thank you, and for we've been an organization in place just for a few years, and we've been really dedicated in research pretty exclusively over the last couple of years, and are now just starting to begin, doing some, work with legislators. So I appreciate the lessons, you passing on the lessons that you've learned. And, I think there's models that we're going to have to take up as well, but similar to yours, to make sure that happens. So thank you. And thank you for the great work you're doing. Do you have a website for your park also?
Yeah, so my personal the Feal Good Foundation is fealgoodfoundation.com, FEAL goodfoundation.com, all one word. And then the 9/11 responders remembered park.com. And that is on my Feal Good page anyway. Listen, just Google Feal Good Foundation or the park or John Feal.
We'll have links attached to the podcast.
Yeah, we'll put links for anyone who's listening so they can check it out. And then I think that park should be the image for our when we send it out, the cover image.
Yeah, so every year, last Saturday would have been our tree lighting ceremony. So we got a big Christmas tree in the park, and the park's nestled in the town of Wisconsin. So every year we light the park up. Santa comes on the fire truck, but this year, because of the COVID and the weather, we couldn't do it. And the walls lit up with red, white, and blue hi-hats from the ground up, shooting up at night. So I have your email address, Tom. So I will send you pictures of it.
Okay.
But the Christmas lights are red, white, and blue that go around the whole park, and it's just a beautiful thing. And if you guys aren't doing anything next year, every September, I keep tracking a calendar year of September 1st to September 1st on how many people have passed from a 9/11 illness. And the Saturday after the anniversary of 9/11, we do our own reading of the names event, and then followed by the ringing of the bell for each name. And then we get a flyover from a red, white, and blue helicopter. It's a tearjerker of an event. And if you Google it, you'll see this year that it's the first time we went Facebook Live, because we've been doing it for 10 years. But we average about 1,000 people on the property. So to me, that's the most special day of the year. So yeah,
I would love to check that out when we get back to being able to travel. That would be I would definitely love to check that out. If the other thing is, if you ever make it through St. Louis, you got to let me know, and I'll buy you lunch for spending time with us.
I appreciate that.
And same here on the left coast. So I don't know how much a New York boy likes to come out to Los Angeles.
Yeah, we were. I was out in Los Angeles in 2016 doing outreach for firefighters and police officers that went to Ground Zero or the Pentagon. So I'm a contractor on the healthcare side of the bill, and my job was to travel around the country because there's 28 FEMA teams around the country that send people to those 3 terrorist attack sites. So they didn't know about the programs. They didn't know that they can get free healthcare. A lot of them passed away. But even if you know somebody that passed away from a 9/11 related illness, their family can still get compensated under a wrongful death claim. So we'd love to help them.
Well, you always have a standing invitation for lunch here as well, John.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time.
In Missouri, you'd be surprised. The food that you're not going to get good Thai food, you're not going to get good pizza. You're not going to get those sorts of things, but you get some kick-ass barbecue.
Dude, I love barbecue. And hot sauce. Anything that has hot sauce on it, I'll eat.
it's one of the things that I miss the most about from COVID is not getting my weekly barbecue in St. Louis. But
oh yeah,
we'll get back to it.
When I got COVID and pneumonia, I lost my taste buds and smell for a couple of weeks, and the first thing I wanted was hot sauce. Because those are the things, and barbecue sauce, and those are the things, But when I was at the height of my illness, I put a shot of Jameson's in my mouth. I couldn't taste it. I had 6 holes in my mouth. I put hot sauce on my tongue. I couldn't taste anything. But when it first came back, it was hot sauce, and I'll put hot sauce on a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
I won't go that far, but I like hot sauce. All right, fellas. Hey, thank you. Thanks again. And
thanks, guys. I appreciate you having me.